Hey everybody, my name is Phil Wesson. I am a Hitfilm user out in Norwalk, Connecticut. Um, this is just a quick tutorial. It's mainly just on procedure. As you can see, this is not one of the best shots. But that being said, I just wanted to make this just to explain to a fellow user, Rick1, just how I parented the procedural fire and smoke to this building to achieve this effect. Again, looking at it now, there's about a million things I'd change, and I very well may, just not during the course of this tutorial. But I'm going to try and go as slow as I can and really explain how I was doing things. This is actually my first tutorial, so I apologize if it does not come across as well refined as others. I am no Andrew Kramer. That being said, let's get started. And right, if you have any questions after this, feel free to find me on hitfilm.com in the forums, and I'll do my best to answer them. Right, so let's do this. So the first thing we want to do is we want to take a look at the effect that we're going to create. I just did a quick RAM preview, and so let's take a quick look. Now, this is already just because flames are going too fast, the smoke is going too fast, you know, it's not tracked correctly, the mask is a little off. But again, that is not what we're here for. We're here just to talk about gluing this flame to the building, so to speak. So what I did is I actually have another shot that's completely blank, and we'll start there. So I shot some footage. By the way, this is a perfect reason why you should name your shots and name your files, or else you're going to have a lot of this. That being said, let's get right back to it. I took this shot with a Canon HV40. It's not a bad camera, you know, if you're looking for one. It's actually tape-based, which I kind of like. There's a little bit of grain that that is still there that you don't really get with a DSLR. But, you know, to each their own. So here's the first shot, right? And what's really nice is that this is actually very good for just regular point motion tracking, not planar. We're not going to jump into Mocha tonight. But so what we're going to do first is just track this footage. And all I really care about right now is from here to about here. So just for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to cut the I'm just going to take the in and out points and bring them to about here and here. So we've got about, what is this, 7 seconds just from here to here. So first thing we're going to do, like I said, is going to track this. So we're going to take the little down arrow from the actual video track and hit track. When that happens, you're going to get this double box. There's some fantastic motion tracking tutorials on hitfilm.com, but we're just going to kind of fly through this. So first thing we do is we pick something like a high contrast point. This will do for our purposes. The inner box, I believe, is this area is what the program's going to be looking for during every frame, and this area here is where the program is going to be looking for the that actual frame. So we're looking for this within this area here. So we're going to take that, we're going to hit the track forward button. Now, one thing I should have done is realize that this motion track, it looks like it's about to leave the frame. Okay, see, that's exactly what happened. However, you know, we're not even going to mess with it. It's just about good enough. One thing that you should remember when you're motion tracking that I woefully did not is to look for a feature that is in every part of the frame, especially if you're doing this kind of motion tracking. You know, maybe we should have tried the top of the church here, or maybe one of these other windows, maybe this one particularly, because it seems to stay within the piece. But you know what? It's late, I gotta add a work, so we're gonna go with this. So we have this position tracked, but that is not everything. We need to take that track and apply it to a point. For those who have used After Effects before, that is pretty much essentially a null. So I just created a new point by going to New Layer and Point. You can do the same thing by right-clicking in here, going to New Layer and Point. But you know, whatevs. Right. So here's the tracker. We're going to transform, which is your X and Y, as opposed to stabilize. If we wanted to try and stabilize this, and for this shot, we really wouldn't want to do that. Not going to go into it. You can try it yourself. To transform, the layer that you're going to apply this transform data to is this one here, this new point. And just so I can follow my own advice, I'm going to go here and rename the point to tracker. So if you actually even go back here, that's changed and it says tracker now. So I'm applying the transform data that we just tracked to this tracker null here. So we click our tracker, we hit apply, fantastic. Now if you hit and select the tracker layer here, you'll actually see that motion data. So that's kind of how you know that you did it right. So, so yeah, fantastic. That's great. See you next. No, all right. Let's keep going. So the first thing we want to do is obviously add our fire layer, and I'm still trying to figure out exactly the ins and outs of fire. But to demonstrate this, we are going to add a new layer, and it's going to be a plane. And I believe you're going to want to have a black plane. So we create that. It's the size of the comp. Right now, obviously, we can't see everything. So I'm going to just toggle the visibility for this. And the way that the fire works is that it's, by default, it's just going to fill the entire frame with fire. Actually, we can demonstrate this really quickly. If we go to Particle Simulation and Fire, Layer Only, we're going to drag that to the new plane, which we're going to rename as the Fire Plane. Now, if I turn this on, you're going to see the entire layer turns into fire. Great, it's working, but for us, not so much. The first thing we want to do with this is we want to basically tell Hitfilm what areas we want to be basically an emitter or a live area for the fire. There's other ways of doing this. If you chroma key something out, you can use that. You can, I believe, set color ranges. I'm not really sure. Go here, flammable regions. Yeah, you can set layers to be the flammable region. We're not going to be doing that this time. But what we will do is we're going to take our mask tool and we're going to look at these windows. And I'm just going to really quickly make some masks here. This is all in the fire layer. Okay, you know what? Not even going to make that an issue. We've got one building with one window on fire. We're going to go with that. Actually, as a matter of fact, I did that before. I'm not really sure what's going on right now, but again, I'm not really going to worry about it. Alright, if we're to turn this back on, you can see that the fire is coming out of this window. Now, the first thing that we notice is that this does not look great. You have all this black here when you don't want that. And the reason for that is that this layer is set on normal. So we want to change this to add or screen. I usually default to add. It's just a preference. You can certainly change that if you like. This mask thing's bothering me, but I'll just deal with it. One of the easiest things to do right now is, since we only have the one bit of fire coming out, is that you start to design the way your fire looks. And from what I've gathered, if you go into simulation, you can start messing with it here, and you can see it start to change just as I move the iterations down. The iterations really kind of says to me the quality of the fire. The higher it is, the more fire-like it's going to be. Source scale is just exactly what it sounds like. The size of the source and then the source fill. According to Axel Wilkinson on Hitfilm, the smaller the source scale, you're going to want to play with the fill to make sure that it's, I guess, the fire is being accurately represented. And based off of the distance of the fire from the camera, this is, you're going to kind of have to mess with it to see what works. See, right now I'm just making the fire a little bit larger by adjusting the fill here. Going to appearance, your high and low temperature is really going to decide how vibrant the fire is. For example, if you're lowering your higher temperature, you're going to get more of these whites in here. If you're lowering the low temperature, you're going to get more of this stuff right over here. So this is kind of cool. I mean, it's not the best, and certainly other people can do a little bit better, but might as well mess with this a little bit. Movement is just how much it's flapping back and forth. You've got your noise, you've got your intensity. Lord, what did I just do? All right, cool. We're just gonna go with something like this, I suppose. No, that looks rubbish. We're not gonna go with that. What we are gonna do is hit the undo button a few times. Cool. We're gonna go with this. Now, normally, if we were to hit play, the background plate would move, but the fire wouldn't. So we are going to parent the fire plane to the tracker. And once we start moving that, the flame seems to be moving with the window. Now, of course, there's a little bit of a skewing right here, and that's mostly because my track wasn't really great. But for all intents and purposes, that's how you at least get it to stick to the building. Now, what's wrong with this as well, and this is something I see a lot on YouTube, not necessarily Hitfilm because we have a lot of classy people here, but a lot of other people, when they're doing light effects, whether it's lightning or whether it's fireballs or fire or anything like that, they kind of throw the effect on. They throw add on there, and then they say, "Hey, I'm done. Fantastic." But the best way to really get, as far as what I've seen, the best way to really get high quality looking fire is that you have to have a contrasting color beneath the fire. And for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, if I can find it, probably just smoke. So I'm going to take that smoke and I'm going to put it directly below my fire plane. As you can see, if I just turn this other stuff off, first of all, it added a new camera because the smoke is a 3D layer, and more on that later, but just moving around, the smoke is just sitting there. And that's fine, that's great, but it's not necessarily what we want. So we're going to go into smoke. You can actually do this a little bit better with bonfire, which, since I'm feeling lazy and I haven't really figured out the particle effects as well as I like, we're going to use that. And it's actually a cool trick. Take bonfire, we're going to put it right under the fire plane. Now, this is the default bonfire effect, but we're not going to use the smoke or the fire. I'm sorry, the embers of the fire. So let's go into the controls. I just selected bonfire effect. Go to the controls, I'm turning the fire off, and I'm turning the embers off. So right now we're just getting this smoke. And that's great, but the color, we want it to be a lot darker. So we're going into here. I'm going to go to color, and we're going to turn this down really low. We are also going to go into fire, and where is it? There's one that's color from fire. I don't see it. Oh, here it is. It's under smoke. So basically, the orange that you're seeing here is based off of the fire. So we're going to take that down a bit because right now we just want that smoke. Adjust this to your liking. The spread, I'm not going to have it too spread, I guess. The density, I'm going to rise up, and the size is about right. So I'm going to lower, no, that's good. Thickness as well. And then again, I'm just going to parent this to the tracker null. Let me actually, while I have this here, I'm just going to position it a little bit. You got your X, Y, and Z. Now, if you remember, our fire layer is this window right here. So let's just move this down about there. Turn the fire plane on. Move this forward. And you're starting to get something. You can see I didn't take all of the light from the fire away, and something I should probably do, and this should actually come up a bit more. This is really thick smoke. It's a really big fire. So let's see here. Probably density, I want to say. And lifetime, if I can find it. Oh, height. Perfect. That's under general. I'm sure there's some other things you can do here, probably adding some effects to the bonfire effect layer, just to kind of get some variation. But for now, this is a good start. So again, the couple things. One is the smoke, obviously making your fire look the way you want before you start messing with it, which I didn't, and I kind of, it's just kind of cool. All right, it's a little better. You know, it's kind of, it's moving around a bit too much, and this really isn't a windy day, so I'll probably take the movement down. Variation down, and then probably raise the iterations just to have it come out a bit more. Right, now imagine that coming out of every one of these windows, and that's probably what I'd like to do. And you wouldn't have to make this smoke come out of every window. You would just, you know, change the dimensions of the actual smoke emitter. So those are two of the things. Now, one last thing is that every lighting effect, whether it's electricity or fire or anything like that, you have to think, you know, that's a light source, so it's going to affect the areas around it. So first thing we want to do here is we want to kind of say, all right, if the light source is here, you're going to get some light spill around this area of the actual building. One way to do this, there's a number of ways. One way I like is to duplicate your background layer. I'm going to turn these off. I'm actually going to put this, I think, right about here. And then I'm going to just take a circular mask and kind of do that. Easy enough, right? So we've got our mask. Right now you can't really see anything because it's literally the same information just on top of the same information. So this is pretty much a cutout that's fitting directly into this puzzle piece. So we want to do some color correction to this. So what we're going to do is we'll go to color correction. Brightness contrast is a good one. You know, you can start to see the difference there in the layers. Make sure you go with your mask and feather it. I usually use color temperature as well, and then, you know, do a little bit of that. And I'm really liking color balance just to get a bit more control over what we're getting. So right now I just went into color balance, midtones, and I'm just going to add some red. You know, you can take away some blue and green. There's probably a very good, you know, procedure and thing that you can do to say, all right, well, I'm adding red. Maybe instead of adding red, you take away the other colors. I've seen some people do that, especially with curves. Not really following it here. You can't really see much with the high colors, the highlights. The shadows you should actually see. Yeah, there we go. You start to see a lot more variation in the color there. And then additionally, you want to make this either add or screen. I'm going to go with add. So turning the other layers back on now. If we turn on our fire layer and we turn on our bonfire, this is actually the smoke. The smoke actually should be right, again, below the fire layer and above the background layer. So we've got our camera that is addressing the smoke particle layer. We've got our fire plane, which is the fire. We've got this bonfire effect being the smoke. This is the same as the footage. It's just an add with a mask around the area that's being affected by the light. This is actually really big. If it's just one window that's on fire, it's not going to be that big. So let's actually move this down a bit. And then we've got our tracker point, which we don't really need to even have on, and then we have our base plate. This is the add layer. We're going to want to parent that to the tracker as well. And we've got a bit of this. Now, one thing you may notice, Lord knows what that was, one thing you may notice is just about here. You can see that it's moving a bit, and I'm not really liking that. So what I'm going to try instead, I'm going to turn that off. I'm just going to add a grade layer, and I'm just going to do the same thing. So we just made a new grade layer. I'm putting it under the bonfire. I'm going to do a circular mask. Turn this stuff off just to speed things up. So we've got our circular mask. I believe this was our window that was in flames. I'm just going to go here to the, where is it? Here it is. And I'm going to copy these three effects. I'll go to our grade layer and paste them. The mask needs to be feathered and parented to the tracker. And then let's turn those back on. Set the mask to add. And there you go. There's a bunch of other cool things you can do with this to sell the effect more. Maybe some sparks, maybe some secondary flames, maybe some embers, maybe whatever. This smoke is looking a bit too thick. I've never been near a fire like this before, so I can't really say. But with everything tracked, everything parented to the tracking null, that's how you get that that cool kind of, it's coming out of the building effect. Another thing is this shot is totally not graded, so let's go ahead and add another grade layer. First thing I'll do is I'm going to crush the blacks and whites. Just make this darks a little bit darker. Not that dark. Again, I apologize. I'm working on a MacBook that's actually running Windows, and the RAM I bought isn't working, so I'm only using 8 gigs of RAM when I should be using 16. But them's the breaks. So we're just going to go with this for right now. Darkening the darks, lightening the lights. Color balance. This is a warm shot. It's actually fall right now, but if there's a fire, you're going to think there's probably some other stuff going on. So I'm going to, just to the overall shot, I'm going to add some red to the shadows and to the midtones. I'm also going to do something cool that was in a tutorial that I saw for Prism, which is if we take a gradient, a color gradient, and we add that to this. Right now it's white and you're like, hey, what's going on here? Let's actually take the start point and the end point. We're just going to reverse this so that the lighter side is on the top and it kind of comes down. This not looking great, but once you turn the what's white right now into like a burnt red, and then change this to not add, but I think it's color burnt. No, not color burn. Color dodge, could it be? You get kind of a haziness. Again, guys, feel free to correct me as much as you'd like in the comments. Again, for this you don't really need to parent it because it's kind of everywhere. You know, it's just kind of describing the scene rather than one particular element. If this was generating a lot more light, you'd probably want to do something to make sure that the gradient was addressing that and you know, following it a bit more. So what do we got? We got color balance, we got crushed blacks and whites, we got color gradient. What else can we throw in here? It's looking alright for what we're doing, not fantastic. Hue, saturation, and lightness is usually kind of cool. I actually, myself, like to lower saturation sometimes just to give it a grittier look. You can even use a bleach bypass if you want. I don't really think that's good for this shot right now, but hey, to each their own. This is just a little too much, so I'm just going to kick it down a little bit. I'm not going to really mess with the hue shift. Maybe the lightness here just to address that. And if we turn these guys back on, and then add under generate the letterbox effect. I'd possibly actually do that in another layer just to keep things clean, but we all kind of see what I do with our layers. New grade, new camera, whatever. So right, here we have it. If I pull this down to quarter just so we can move it a little faster, you can kind of see the fire is sticking to the building. The smoke is sticking to that as well, as is the lighting effect. This ad right here. There goes my screen. Here it's back. So there you have it. Some things to worry about. Well, not really worry about, but to be mindful of is that when you're doing this, you're actually moving this layer. This is actually the fire plane itself. It's not sitting on the confines of this, but that's how you get it to move with the building. It's literally moving the fire with the building just based off of the X and Y. If you were doing this with 3D tracking with Mocha Hitfilm, you might want to address it differently. You can use 3D planes and place those however you like. And that could come up with some cool effects. I'll probably try that this weekend and post something else. But for now, this is what we got. And if you have any questions, let me know. And again, I'm going to figure out why I can only mask that one thing. That was kind of weird. Can't say that I'm not, a little embarrassed. But I guess that happens. But hey, we're all figuring this out, right? Maybe Simon or Axel will come in and tell me what I'm doing wrong. I'm hoping. Anyways, thanks a lot, guys, for listening. If you stayed this long, I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you'd like any new tutorials. I'm actually trying to figure out the 3D compositing. But that's what we got. It's not too far off from what we had here. Got multiple masks there. I don't know what happened. Boom. There you got it. Take it easy, everybody.